Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. And today's episode is Hannibal Season 3, Episode 5, Contorno. Episode in a nutshell is just a brief reminder of what happened in the episode. So we start the episode with Jack on a bridge, and from the bridge he releases Bella's ashes into the river before throwing his wedding ring into the river as well. After this, he then goes to meet Ronaldo and his wife for dinner, where they discuss Hannibal and Ronaldo's history, with having met Hannibal back in the day when Hannibal was much younger. We then move on to Alana and Mason discussing Hannibal's various tastes and tableware in food, etc., etc., and once again reiterating from the previous episodes how they plan to find him based on this taste. And this is when Alana reveals that there has been a weekly order at a specialty food store made by a blonde woman over the last few months, and it is revealed to be Bedelia. We then have Chio and Will, who are in a hotel. They again together discuss Hannibal as they are traveling to search for him. And then Ronaldo ends up meeting Hannibal, approaching him as Dr. Fell to ask about Sogliotto and also the other guy who was killed earlier that Hannibal worked with that I don't remember the name of. Anyways, Hannibal's killed two people that he works with at the Palazzo, I think they call it. And Ronaldo's coming by to question him about it. However, as soon as he leaves, he does call a tip line about Hannibal, showing that he did in fact recognize him. Hannibal then is at home playing the piano and talks with Bedelia about the fact that he knows Ronaldo recognized him, but that his most likely course of action is going to be to sell him, not to report him to the police. We then have Will waking up in a train car with finding Chio gone, and so he meets her at the caboose of the train. And after they talk briefly about, more types of influence than just violence, she tells him violence is what he understands and then pushes him off the back of the train. He then wakes up, sees the feathered stag walking along the tracks, and gets up to follow it, also walking along the tracks, still heading towards the destination. We then have Ronaldo getting in touch with Mason, who offers him a reward for the information about Hannibal and also an advance cash payment if there's definitive proof via a fingerprint of Hannibal's identity being found, and then the rest when Hannibal is delivered to him alive and well so that he can torture him. And Alana makes sure that Ronaldo knows that what fate awaits Hannibal is torture and then death. We then have Ronaldo once again visiting Hannibal, this time to try to get his fingerprint. And he shows a family heirloom, which is a mask that his ancestor was forced to wear. And then Hannibal shows him a wooden carving of his ancestor's execution, and notes that he's seen the carvings bowels in and bowels out. Before they then fight, and Hannibal, of course, knocks Ronaldo out. A little while later, Ronaldo comes back to consciousness, and Hannibal questions him, noting that because the police haven't arrived, he must have sold him. He probably sold him to Mason, and basically asks him yes or no questions because his mouth is taped up, all while tying a noose. And then his phone rings. He answers Ronaldo's phone for him, and it's Alana on the other line. He then kills Ronaldo, deciding on bowels out, and basically tosses him out the window with the noose so that he hangs in front of the Palazzo, which is when he looks down and we see that Jack is standing in the courtyard looking up at Ronaldo's body. When Jack arrives in the room, Hannibal starts taunting him about Bella and her medications and how, basically asking him, did you give her too much medication? Did you give her just enough? You know, she must have been so sick in the end, blah, blah, blah. This provokes Jack. Jack attacks him. Jack actually wins the fight and maintains the upper hand throughout the fight, eventually knocking Hannibal out through the window. But it's the same window he dropped Ronaldo out of, so Hannibal is able to slow his fall by grabbing onto the body and then landing safely and unharmed. He then gets up and their positions are reversed, where Jack is looking out of the window and Hannibal is looking up at Jack before he then walks away. So now that we've been reminded about what happened in the episode, we'll rank the episode on our mostly objective ranking list, followed by the personal ranking list. So as for our mostly objective rank values, we'll start with our multi-episode supporting character development, and this is Ronaldo dying in a... Well, I think it was quick because he had the noose around his neck, which could have taken a while, but I think it was a far enough drop that it probably snapped it. And then, of course, all of his intestines ended up on the outside, and if he had been alive, he would have probably struggled. So I think it was a quick death. But Ronaldo dies in this one, and that is worth 2 points. Then we have 3 points for our impactful / memorable moment line, etc. And for me, this is when Will is pushed off the train. Most shows, there are those moments like when you've watched it and then you haven't watched it again for a while, and you're thinking back on the series as you're debating whether you want to rewatch it or not. There are those like moments that kind of like stick out and come to your mind first. And for me, Will getting pushed off the train is one of the moments that comes to mind first when I'm thinking about it. It's not the first thing that comes to mind, but it is definitely up there in the tops of moments that I would remember or recall, making it naturally a memorable moment, hence why it is worth the 3 points, Will getting pushed off the train. Bringing us to 4 points for our multi-season main character development, which is that Will is pushed off a train. And this is after Chio kisses him. I did not count it towards supporting relationship development because I don't think they have a relationship. I think she just used that as like a manipulation tactic. I don't think there's any actual like true feelings there at all. So I didn't count the kiss as a supporting relationship development of any kind, but it is how she distracts Will that gives her the opportunity to push him off of the train. And so that would bring us up to 9 points. However, we obviously have a negative, which is pretty standard, and that is our negative messaging or behavior. Obviously, privately setting a bounty on someone's head, I don't think that's necessarily legal, and so the fact that Mason set a bounty on Hannibal, not a great thing. Obviously, Chio pushing Will off of a train, that's got to be a minimum an assault, definitely a negative messaging or behavior. And we also have improper disposal of human remains. I'm fairly certain you can't just go to a random bridge and throw human ashes, human remains into the water. Like, I'm fairly certain either that's illegal completely or you have to go through like certain hoops and such to be able to. But even then, like, I don't think a random bridge where a bunch of people are walking by who could inhale the ashes and then like you're contaminating the waters of the river with the ashes. Like, I don't think you'd be allowed to do that. I don't. Once you've done it, I don't think anyone can actually like stop you, and I don't know if it's something that you'd be arrested for or just like fined for or like given like a slap on the wrist or a warning or something, but I don't think it's legal. But I don't know for certain because obviously I have never disposed of human remains of any kind, ashes or otherwise, so I don't really know what the exact rules are in Italy or anywhere else for it, but I just have a strong feeling that, yes, yeah, I don't think you can do that. And very minimum, he did throw his ring in. That is pollution. That is littering. You have now polluted the river and littered into the river. So overall, I still consider it negative messaging or behavior, though the sentiment behind it wasn't bad. I still don't think it's something that you're supposed to or should do. And therefore, I decided to count all of them together because a lot of them I'm like, I'm not sure if they're illegal. I just feel like the things that you probably shouldn't do, and they could potentially be illegal. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure pushing someone off a train is definitely illegal. But anyways, I decided to lump them all together. I only took off 2 points for those three things, and that then brings this episode to a 7 out of 10 objectively. So as for our season 3 rankings so far in the mostly objective ranking, we have Primavera in first, Aperitif in second, Antipasto third. This episode, Contorno, is fourth, and then Secondo is in fifth place. So my personal opinions on the episode is that it is so far my favorite of the season, though being a rewatcher, I know that there are better ones to come, and so I have scored accordingly. I liked some of the imagery in this episode, but once again, I found that it was very dark. Like the filming was very dark to the point where you could barely make out what was on the screen. And it could be because I watch the episodes with the lights on to protect my eyes rather than watching them in the dark. And also because I do have like my computer there, like I have the lights on, so maybe it looks darker in contrast to that, but I just feel like most of the time I can barely see anything happening on screen. Like if there were like little clues or things that were in like the props or the background, I wouldn't know it because I can't see it. And I can barely even make out the faces of the people. It's a good thing that their voices are all distinct so I know who's talking and who's who and where each person is. But it's very frustrating because I feel like I miss out on some of the show and the nuances of it because I can barely see it. And that also helps, like, that makes it take a hit. Mason, I love that when he's talking to Ronaldo, he hangs up the call with a toodaloo. I thought that was great. Obviously, Mason is one of my favorite characters. He'd be a terrible, terrible person that you'd never want to exist in reality, but in fiction, very entertaining character. So I did enjoy that when he was talking about, with Alana and with Ronaldo. Hannibal's basically been doing work. Will's been doing his travel and he got pushed off a train, which obviously is one of the most memorable moments in the entire series, in my opinion. Not the most memorable, but one of the more memorable moments. Like when you're just years from having watched it originally and you're like thinking about another rewatch and you're thinking about key moments and details from the series, this is one that stands out, which is why, again, I marked it high because it had one of those moments in it. But it was very light on Will in this episode, and he did get pushed off the train because he randomly trusts this random person that he found. And given his empathy, you would have thought he'd be able to anticipate she's not trustworthy, but he could not. So there was that. That was a bit of a negative. We did get, Hannibal, but Hannibal lost the fight, and since Hannibal is my favorite character, and Will my second favorite character, but Hannibal my favorite character, I was kind of disappointed that he lost. Thank goodness he's like still alive, but like to let himself get so beat up by Jack, especially given how their first fight ended with them being pretty evenly matched and then Hannibal ultimately being the victor. It annoys me that Jack turned the tables, but unlike the first fight, there was like Hannibal barely got in like any hits. Like Jack was standing there like pristine, not even like wounded or winded. And I'm like, that's just unrealistic of a fight, but I did enjoy the fight, which is a positive. And I did find the death interesting of Ronaldo, how Hannibal, like slices them up, and it's actually the momentum of the body falling out that causes all of the intestines to spill out. And, usually we get to see the aftermath of the murder, not the actual murder, so that was a bit new and fun. Overall, like I said, I think it's the best episode so far, but I did score it an 8 because there still were some negatives, and I know there are better ones coming. And that brings the season 3 rankings so far to, in first, this episode Contorno, then Aperitif, Primavera, Secondo, and then last place for myself is Antipasto. And that now brings us to the series ranking so far. So in the mostly objective ranking, we had season 2 with a score of 86.92%, season 1 in second with 83.85%, and season 3 so far has a score of 38 out of a possible 130. On the personal side, we had season 2 in first place with 88.46%, season 1 in second with 66.92%, and season 3 so far has a score of 26 out of a possible 130. And with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Hannibal Season 3, Episode 5, Contorno. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.